It glows warmly, a vintage television perched on a sturdy oak stand, surrounded by shelves crammed with neatly arranged VHS tapes. Welcome to the Videotape Story Vault. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Videotape Story Vault. I'm certainly happy to have you here. Recording a little bit differently this time. I got a new phone, as a matter of fact, so I think that's going to help the audio quality. Let me know if you notice a difference. Pretty please. And did I mention thank you for watching yet? Because thank you for tuning in. Without any further ado, this story is called Snow Shovel Doug, and I hope you like it. Snow Shovel Doug. Pedaling towards the small playground just outside the school's heavy front doors, Liz could already hear the sound of distant arguing. The boyish, high-pitched whines, followed by indignant little kid comebacks, put a smile on her face as she pulled up her bike and kicked down her kickstand. "Dumb shit," Chuck spat at his oldest friend. "No dick," Reed whined back at him. Ladies, please," Liz teased as both boys blushed. "You're both no-dick dumb shits," she finished with a curtsy. The boys gaped at each other momentarily before all three of them began to laugh together. When the sound of three people's laughter suddenly turned to four, however, the laughter stopped slowly and uncomfortably. The boys looked pale, and as Liz turned around, she understood why. It was him, in the same dirty blue parka with the same stupid smile on his sagging face. It was Snow Shovel Doug. According to Liz's mother, Doug was once one of the smartest students Edison had ever seen. A future valedictorian with a spotless attendance record, Doug was only a single mistake away from a Nobel Prize. His mistake, at least according to Liz's mother, was trying acid for the first and last time. Now, instead of reading great speeches and accepting awards, Doug went door to door all year round, asking if he could shovel your snow for a few bucks. A little creepy, but Doug was harmless, as most handicapped folks are. A few years back, Doug even started working as the school's janitor, to the delight of some and the discomfort of others. That being said, Doug didn't have many friends. Liz couldn't help but pity him, the haunted shell of a little kid that never really got to grow up. For a moment, after the laughter had died, nobody spoke. Wide-eyed and innocent, Doug looked down at her like a dog waiting for its stick to be thrown. "What the fuck?" Chuck blurted, the tight smile on Doug's face disappearing at once. "Were you following her?" "Jesus, Doug, you scared the shit out of us," Chuck asked, sounding annoyed. Doug, turning tomato red as he went, quickly dashed towards the school's front doors. "Dumb shit," Chuck mumbled at the sight of Doug pulling hard on the locked doors. "School's out, bro. Sorry not sorry, dumb shit." "Stop saying that," Liz scolded. Chuck turned to face her, shocked. Doug, overwhelmed and uncertain, disappeared around the side of the brick building as he did so. "He's gone," Reed announced pointlessly. "Are you sure?" Chuck asked. Reed shrugged. Chuck sighed before turning his attention back to Liz. "I never knew you had the hots for a retard, lizard breath," Chuck teased. "I do not," Liz groaned with a well-placed punch to Chuck's tiny shoulder. I don't know," Liz mumbled, losing steam. "You feel bad for him." "I do too, kinda," Reed explained. Mercifully, Chuck had nothing to add to this. Liz looked to Reed, grateful. Reed looked back at her, hypnotized by her gentle blue eyes. As Liz and Reed shared their moment of connection, Chuck was already working on a plan free of playgrounds and baby games, a plan full of potential danger and excitement. At the sight of the boy's slowly spreading smile, Reed and Liz looked concerned and uneasy. You know, you're right, Chuck said softly to the surprise of his friends. I was a little hard on the guy, wasn't I? Chuck asked. They both nodded in slow approval. Why don't I go and apologize? I mean, everyone in town knows where he lives, right? The old spook house? Chuck finished. Reed couldn't help but laugh at the absurdity, but Liz didn't think it was very funny. There was no way anybody could live in a house like that. You don't have the balls, Liz sneered. You get halfway across the lawn and piss your pants. Liz laughed, and Reed laughed with her. Dickless dumb shit, Reed sneered, mocking Chuck's triumphant tone. Chuck quickly started to blush with boyish embarrassment. Wiping the joyful tears from their eyes, Liz and Reed were snapped back to reality by the unmistakable sound of a bike's kickstand. Before either of them could say a word, Chuck was racing off towards the empty house. For a moment, the same frantic thought raced through both of them. Let him go. Just let him go. Chuck had done this kind of thing before, running away when he felt overwhelmed by shame or anger. Chuck, easily the largest of the three stooges, was probably halfway there already. There was no time to lose. Mounting their bikes quickly and clumsily, they followed Chuck closely as they could. They could see him at first, quickly disappearing down the long sidewalk ahead of him. When they reached the traffic light downtown, Reed and Liz watched helplessly as Chuck zoomed down the crosswalk without ever changing pace. Reaching the same corner, Liz and Reed were forced to hop off their bikes and wait for the light to change. You think he really went in there? Reed asked, just loud enough to be heard over the sound of passing cars. Liz shrugged. Maybe, she told him, uncertain herself. If Chuck was worked up, she guessed he would do just about anything to prove them wrong. Never in her short life had a traffic light felt longer. When the traffic died and the light changed, they walked their bikes to the opposite corner before taking off again. A reassuring thought occurred to her. There was no way in hell that Doug could have beat them in their race to find Chuck. For all they knew, Doug was out knocking on doors in his dirty patchwork parka, the snow shovel clutched loosely in his right hand. After a few more minutes of heavy pedaling, they reached the edge of town. The spook house, as Chuck had called it, was an old crumbling mansion that had stood empty on the otherwise edge of town for decades. Liz folks say it used to be a hospital during the war. Reed's folks say that the family that lived there disappeared, leaving every single one of their earthly possessions behind. The only thing Liz knew for certain was that her mother didn't want her anywhere near the place. The sight of Chuck's shiny silver bike parked on the lawn outside tightened her stomach as they approached. Looking to Reed for comfort, Liz saw the same false bravery and poorly hidden concern. The house's ancient front door was wide open and waiting for them. When they called for Chuck and nobody answered, they dismounted their bikes and moved slowly closer to the front door. Chuck! Reed called out, but this time something moved. Guys? Guys? A small, familiar voice shouted from the bowels of the house. Guys? Help me! Guys! First curious and now terrified, the voice sent goose flesh through them both. With Reed standing frozen behind her, Liz rushed into the house and towards the sound of her friend. Down the main hall and through the kitchen, she felt like she had been shot from a cannon full of pure adrenaline. When Liz reached the pantry and found the cackling Chuck rolling on the floor, she had to fight the urge not to kick him square in the ribs. She had been scared before, yes, but for the first time in her short life, Liz had been absolutely terrified. Asshole! She barked. Chuck, just now composing himself, bowed theatrically with pride. Got you good, huh? Who's the chicken shit now? Chuck bellowed. Liz, distracted, was taking in her surroundings for the first time. The whole house smelled like moldy wood and damp cardboard, like the nest of 1,000 animals over 1,000 years. The only decor left to speak of were empty beer bottles and spray-painted anarchy over the walls. The windows, poorly boarded long ago, offered thin, dusty slivers of light as they explored. Now that she had shed most of her fear, Liz was in awe of the place. Pretty sweet, huh? Chuck asked, only to be ignored. Hey, where's Reed? He added. Oh, shit, Liz mumbled, heading back the way she came. When Chuck asked her to wait, she didn't pause for a second. Stepping out of the house and onto the front lawn, she tried to avert her eyes as Reed dried his tears. I'm sorry, I thought maybe... It's okay, we're okay, Liz assured him. Reed flashed a weak smile. Bunch of losers! Chuck laughed from his spot by the pantry. You know it's not too late to leave him here, right? Reed teased. Liz seriously considered the proposal. Is it cool in there? Reed asked sheepishly. Liz simply nodded before they walked through the front door together. Waiting for them in the front hall, Chuck was looking oblivious and excited. This place is the tits, Chuck declared as the small group reunited. It smells terrible in here, Reed complained with a roll of his eyes. Chuck started moving deeper into the old house. I didn't have much time to explore before you guys found me, but I'm pretty sure nobody lives here. There's no mattress or anything, just broken glass and butts, Chuck explained, sounding like a realtor. There's an upstairs part, too, but the stairs collapsed, he finished, sounding disappointed. What about the basement? Reed asked, to which Chuck only shrugged. I hope not, Reed prayed quietly as they explored the house together. Opening every door and peering into every cupboard, they didn't find much. The only excitement during their search was the discovery of a possum under the kitchen sink. After they had checked every room and before they could leave, Liz noticed a strange seam. Barely visible behind the dusty china cabinet in the dining room, a thin brown seam in the wallpaper caught Liz's eye. Do you guys see that? She asked, pointing her finger towards it. The boys shook their heads slowly. The line, that little brown line, Liz explained as she moved towards the cabinet. Oh yeah, I see it, Chuck cheered as he joined her at the cabinet. When the cabinet was finally pulled away from the wall, the room fell silent. Nobody moved to open the newly revealed door. Well, Liz asked uncomfortably. I know I'm not going first, Chuck told them. Taking the bait, Chuck shrugged and offered his services. Well, Liz asked uncomfortably. I know I'm not going first, she told them flat. Taking the bait, Chuck offered his services and pushed against the wall. The door opened silently, revealing a dark set of wooden stairs. At the bottom of the stairs sat a heavy iron door on a small concrete landing. We aren't gonna go down there, right? Reed asked, breaking the tension. Of course not, Liz told him at once. Chuck looked at them both as if he'd been slapped. Seriously? Like, what the fuck else are we gonna do? I'm so bored of fucking playgrounds, Chuck lamented. Well, the doors are probably locked anyway, Reed guessed. Without saying a word, Chuck moved down the stairs bravely. When Chuck pulled the door handle, nothing happened. "See?" Reed called down triumphantly, with a hard pull that knocked him on his ass. The door swung open with a groan. The unbroken darkness inside gave them no hints as to what they were in for. "Are you okay?" Liz called to the boy sprawled under the last two steps. "My ass hurts," Chuck whined. "Serves you right, jackass," Liz teased as she made her way down the stairs. "Should have brought a flashlight. Can't see shit in there," Chuck complained as Liz joined him outside the newly opened door. "Come on, guys, let's go home," Reed begged. "We can come back tomorrow." Unable to help himself, Chuck fumbled around the doorframe for some kind of light switch. "He's right. We should come back." Before she could finish, Liz was temporarily blinded by a pure white flash of fluorescent lighting. Unlike the slowly rotting rooms upstairs, the basement was impossibly clean and odorless. On the back wall of the small space was a large TV mounted between two bookshelves. In front of the black mirror sat an old leather couch, the only piece of furniture beside the tall skeletal coat rack near the room's only entrance. Hypnotized by this small subterranean room, they barely noticed Reed making his way down to get a look. When the small boy spoke a single word, they all jumped with surprise. "Fuck! Jesus Christ!" Chuck said simply, excitedly. "This is so fucking cool! I wonder who else knows about this place?" Chuck wondered aloud, making his way to the bookshelf. Skimming the shelf of DVDs, Chuck looked more and more disappointed. "It's all little kid shit," Chuck spat. "What about the books?" Reed asked. "Who cares about the books, stupid?" Chuck sneered. Liz, disgusted, made her way to the second shelf. Instead of Clifford the Big Red Dog, Liz was greeted by titles like Moby Dick, Catcher in the Rye, and A Study in Scarlet. "The books are all, old. Smart people books," Liz said, confused. "Well, hey, at least we know they aren't Doug's," Chuck tittered. "I don't know. Maybe he's not as dumb as he looks," Liz offered. "Bullshit," Chuck scoffed. "Anything in the DVD player?" Liz asked. "Only one way to find out," Chuck declared as he snatched the remote before throwing himself onto the couch. As the TV came to slow life and the DVD player began to hum, Reed and Liz sat on the other two cushions. "I don't think we should stay here for much longer," Reed advised. "Shut up, it's starting." On screen, a mounted camera points towards a small white bed in a small white room. Sleeping peacefully under the dim yellow lighting is a boy no older than 9 years old. After no more than a minute, the dim yellow light turns to a harsh white. The boy in the colorful pajamas snaps awake, terrified. "Shut it off," Reed demanded petulantly. "We need to get out of here." Liz expected Chuck to say something, but he didn't. Despite Reed's demands, Chuck let the tape play on. On screen, a loud buzz is heard as the heavy door to the cell is slowly opened. "No, no, 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 no." The boy in the bed sobs quietly. "Please, please, 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 please," he begs in a whisper. The door is now fully open. The boy does not attempt to run. Closing the door behind him, all they see of the man is the back of his bald head. As they watch in frozen terror, the man sits on the corner of the boy's bed and turns toward the camera. It's a man they all know well, even without the dirty blue parka. Gently, Doug beckons the boy with an outstretched hand. The boy, porcelain white and shaking, moves towards him slowly until they are seated side by side. With the same beckoning hand, Doug runs his fingers through the boy's hair. Jesus fucking Christ, Chuck cried, fumbling with the remote until the TV was off and the room was silent. Reed started to cry quietly. I told you guys, I told you. Reed managed through his slowly blooming shock. Shut up! Just shut the fuck up! Chuck roared, hoping to silence his racing thoughts along with his best friend. In their shock and isolation, nobody heard the front door upstairs closing. What are we gonna do? Liz asked nervously. We have to go to the cops, Reed insisted. My dad would be pissed if we knew we were hanging out here, Chuck warned. It's all your fault, Reed mumbled. Dude, what the fuck? How is this my fault? Liz found the seam in the wallpaper. Remember, it's her fault, Chuck shouted violently. Liz, stunned and hurt, flashed Chuck a nasty look that would have made her mother proud. You know, Chuck, I don't know why we hang out sometimes, Liz said simply. Chuck's anger quickly turned to shame. Fuck you. Fuck you both, Chuck spat, sounding unsteady. I'm out of here, Chuck pouted as he turned toward the door and headed for the stairs. Before he could mount the first step, however, something froze him in his tracks. Chuck? Reed asked nervously. What is it? Liz asked gently. In the silence, all three of them heard the heavy footsteps plodding down the stairs. As the man grew closer, Chuck locked the door and fled back into the false safety of the strange room. Following close behind, Snow Shovel Doug hung his dirty blue coat on his empty coat rack by the door. In his hands, all three of them could hear the sound of keys jingling